In the long arc of human history, there are moments when the world changes forever. Moments when old ideas fade and new ways of thinking are born. One such moment began in Europe during the late 1300s, a period that would come to be known as the Renaissance. Derived from a French word meaning rebirth, the Renaissance marked the revival of art, learning, and culture inspired by the classical civilizations of ancient Greece and Rome. But this was more than a return to the past. It was the beginning of the modern world. Before the Renaissance, Europe was shaped by the Middle Ages. Life revolved around feudal obligations, rigid social classes, and the overwhelming authority of the Catholic Church. Education was limited, books were rare, and knowledge was tightly controlled. Most people lived short, difficult lives as farmers, bound to the land. Art was symbolic rather than realistic, and learning focused almost entirely on religion and the afterlife. Yet beneath this rigid structure, change was already beginning. By the late 13th century, Europe was slowly transforming. Trade expanded between Europe and the Islamic world, bringing with it forgotten texts of philosophy, mathematics, and science. Then came catastrophe. Between 1347 and 1351, the Black Death swept across Europe, killing nearly one-third of the population. Though devastating, the plague weakened feudalism. Labor became valuable. Survivors demanded higher wages. Social mobility increased. At the same time, powerful merchant families rose to prominence, especially in Italy. Wealth, education, and ambition combined to create the perfect conditions for cultural rebirth. Florence skyline, Roman ruins. The Renaissance began in Italy, where ancient Roman ruins stood as daily reminders of past greatness. City-states such as Florence, Venice, Milan, and Rome thrived on trade and banking. Florence, in particular, became the beating heart of Renaissance culture. At the center of Florence's rise was the Medici family, bankers whose immense wealth allowed them to become patrons of artists, architects, and scholars. Patronage meant freedom, freedom to create, experiment, and innovate. For the first time in centuries, artists were celebrated as individuals, not anonymous craftsmen. At the intellectual core of the Renaissance was humanism. Humanism emphasized the study of classical texts, history, poetry, philosophy, and rhetoric. Unlike medieval thinkers, humanists believed that human beings were capable of greatness, creativity, and reason. One of the earliest humanists was Francesco Petrarch, often called the father of humanism. He searched monasteries for forgotten Roman manuscripts and encouraged the study of classical literature. Humanism did not reject religion, but it placed humanity at the center of inquiry. Education was no longer just about preparing for heaven. It was about improving life on earth. Transition from medieval art to Renaissance masterpieces. Perhaps no aspect of the Renaissance is more celebrated than its art. Medieval art had been flat and symbolic. Renaissance art became realistic, emotional, and human. Artists studied anatomy, mathematics, and nature. They developed linear perspective, creating the illusion of depth on flat surfaces. Light, shadow, and proportion transformed paintings into lifelike scenes. This was art not only for worship but for admiration. Leonardo's sketches, Mona Lisa, The Last Supper. No individual better embodies the Renaissance spirit than Leonardo da Vinci. Painter, engineer, scientist, anatomist, and inventor, Leonardo believed that art and science were inseparable. His notebooks reveal studies of human anatomy, flight, machinery, and nature centuries ahead of their time. His most famous works, the Mona Lisa and The Last Supper, display extraordinary realism and emotional depth. Leonardo was not just creating art, he was exploring the mysteries of life itself.
David, Sistine Chapel ceiling. Another towering figure of the Renaissance was Michelangelo Buonarroti. A master sculptor, painter, and architect, Michelangelo believed the human body was a reflection of divine perfection. His statue, David, captures strength, confidence, and ideal beauty. Above all, his work on the Sistine Chapel ceiling remains one of the greatest artistic achievements in human history. Alongside him was Raphael, whose paintings emphasized harmony, balance, and grace. His masterpiece, The School of Athens, symbolizes the Renaissance ideal, uniting ancient philosophy with modern thought.
Cathedral, domes, columns. Renaissance architecture reflected the same principles as art: symmetry, proportion, and classical influence. Architects looked to ancient Roman designs using columns, arches, and domes. Filippo Brunelleschi, a pioneer of Renaissance architecture, engineered the massive dome of Florence Cathedral, a feat once thought impossible. His innovations changed architecture forever.
Star charts, telescopes, anatomy drawings. The Renaissance encouraged people to question traditional beliefs and observe the natural world. Nicholas Copernicus challenged the long-held belief that Earth was the center of the universe. He proposed a heliocentric model, placing the sun at the center. Later, Galileo Galilei used telescopes to support this theory, facing opposition from the Church. In medicine, Andreas Vesalius revolutionized anatomy through direct observation and dissection. These thinkers laid the groundwork for the scientific revolution.
Printing press in motion, books. Around 1440, Johannes Gutenberg introduced the printing press with movable type. For the first time, books could be produced quickly and cheaply. Knowledge spread at unprecedented speed. Literacy increased, universities expanded, ideas crossed borders. The printing press transformed Europe and empowered ordinary people to learn, question, and think independently. Maps, ships crossing oceans. The Renaissance spirit of curiosity extended beyond Europe. Advances in navigation and shipbuilding led to the age of exploration. Explorers such as Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and Ferdinand Magellan ventured across oceans, connecting continents. While exploration brought wealth and knowledge, it also led to conquest, colonization, and suffering, especially for indigenous populations. Opportunities for women were limited, yet some left lasting legacies. Isabella d'Este became a major patron of the arts. Christine de Pizan challenged gender inequality through her writings. Despite these achievements, most women were denied formal education and political power. Chapter 15: The End of an Era. By the late 1500s, political conflict, religious wars, and economic change began to shift Europe once more. The Renaissance gradually gave way to new movements like Mannerism and the Baroque. Yet its influence never faded. The Renaissance reshaped humanity's understanding of itself. It celebrated human potential, encouraged curiosity, and challenged tradition. It gave us masterpieces of art, foundations of science, and ideals of education that still guide us today. The Renaissance was not merely a rebirth of the past, it was the birth of the future.